Somalia is incredibly diverse. For example, when you go up in the northern regions of the country, people typically have higher levels of West Eurasian DNA. And when you go down to the south, you find higher levels of ancestral East African-related ancestry. What's really interesting about the Somali genome is that they're a combination of 2 West Eurasian sources and at least 3 distinct African populations. We're going to look at the Somali genome through a variety of different time periods to understand who they are from a genetic perspective. Over here, I've got a Stone Age DNA breakdown of the average Somali DNA. And interestingly, what we see is that 50% of their DNA is pre-Nilotic in origin. Now guys, the pre-Nilotic people were one of the first people to inhabit East Africa, and they contribute substantially to many Horn and East African populations. It peaks in the Mersey and Gumuz, but can be found all across East African populations. These pre-Nilotic people mixed with pre-existing groups that existed along the Omo River of Ethiopia. And that's why, when we look into the Somali genome, around 15% of their DNA is related to Omotic-related groups. The combination of this pre-Nilotic and Omotic genetic source sets the foundation for the sub-Saharan African component that's found in many Somalis. But if you look closely at this breakdown over here, what you see is that around 2% of their DNA is ancestral North African derived. Both North and East Africans have high prevalences of haplogroup E1b1, and E1b1 is theorized to have originated in the Horn. This indicates that there would have been a population that emerged out of East Africa, moving into the north of Africa. But then there were subsequent migrations back into the region from North Africa. This small North African component forms the first introduction of non-sub-Saharan African-related DNA that we see in the Somali. Around 2,000 years later, we start to see the spread of the Afro-Asiatic languages. And that's why today, the Somali language falls under the Cushitic branch of the Afro-Asiatic linguistic family. The first wave of Afro-Asiatic people to enter into Somalia were not Semitic in origin, but rather were Proto-Cushitic groups who lived around Mesopotamia, migrating down into Arabia and then subsequently into Somalia. We know this because of the prevalence of haplogroup T, which originates somewhere in the Near East and the Caucasus. Today, haplogroup T can be found in high frequencies in certain Somali populations. These early people mixed with the local sub-Saharan African populations within the region. And that's why when we look at the Somali genome, around 25% of their DNA is Cushitic derived. These early Afro-Asiatic migrations set the foundation for subsequent Afro-Asiatic people to migrate within the region. But subsequent migrations were next characterized by Semitic peoples, not Kushites, who had high prevalence of haplogroup J1. Haplogroup J1 peaks in all Semitic populations within the Horn of Africa, and today when we look at the Somali genome, around 8% of their DNA is specifically Semitic derived. This Semitic contribution does not only come from the Islamic expansions, but also can be attributed to the many Semitic empires that predated the Islamic expansions as well. Now, a question I get asked all the time is, are Somalis Arab? Somalis speak Somali, a Cushitic language, not an Arabic one, though Arabic is widely taught and spoken due to religious and historical ties. Culturally, Somalis have their own unique customs, traditions, poetry, and history that distinguish them from Arab cultures. However, due to the intertwined history, especially through trade and the spread of Islam, there have been cultural exchanges. Yes, there is a shared history and an overlap, especially with the Arabian Peninsula. But to label Somalis as Arab would be an oversimplification and overlooks the rich and diverse heritage that has shaped the Somali identity.